Good afternoon. I'm Mike Parsons. We're here at the Praying for the Children's event here at the state capitol in Montgomery, Alabama. We have various speakers here speaking out for the children. Most of our concerns is the Common Core state standards that were implemented many years ago. Along with the standards came a whole lot of other processes that have totally changed our school environment and is affecting our kids. We have a guest speaker here I'm going to introduce. She has traveled all the way from Utah to speak. Joan Landis is a practicing psychotherapist licensed as a clinical mental health counselor in the state of Utah. Let's hear it for Utah. Yeah, okay, Utah. She is credentialed to assess, diagnose, and treat individuals, couples, and families who struggle with the daily stresses of life or who manifest clinical symptoms of mental illness. Joan earned a 4.0 GPA from graduate school and presents workshops and seminars around the country on developing personnel and relationship resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, Joan Landis.
Very good. Thank you so much for inviting me to fly all the way from Utah here to your beautiful state of Alabama. Now that's quite a trip. But I am feeling all the love from the South, and it's such a beautiful experience to be with you people. And I'm really feeling a little bit like King Agrippa when he was talking to Paul. And he said, almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian? Well, almost thou persuadest me to be a Confederate. It's pretty wonderful down here. But you know, the reason I flew all this way, the reason I took time from my family, the reason I left my clients alone for 3 entire days is because I am so concerned about our children. I see children in my practice who are cutting themselves, who are starving themselves, who are attempting to kill themselves. And I see it almost every day. They're anxious, they're depressed, they're bullied, they're sexually promiscuous, they are struggling, they can't learn. What's wrong? What's wrong with our children? Part of it, I want to tell you, is that school has changed for our children. It's not like when we grew up. Now, research will tell us that children are the most resilient, that they can overcome things like poverty and difficulties in life, even prejudice, if they have 3 things. And children, for the most part, had 3 things for most of traditional America's years. Those 3 things were strong family, strong school, and religion. They had a church. And those 3 pillars kept children very resilient. Kind of like a stool with 3 legs on it, right? That we need those 3 legs. Children need those 3 legs. But what happened was, 1962, what happened with the Supreme Court? The leg of religion started being sawed off, wasn't it? No prayer in schools, no religious instruction in schools, right? So that leg of religion started being sawed off, and the Gallup polls recently have determined that millennials are leaving organized religion in droves. So that leg is starting to dissolve. And in fact, for most people, a lot of families, they are not involved in organized religion anymore. That was an important support for children. The next one is the family structure itself. And every social epidemiologist will tell you that the state of the family today is precarious. That leg is nearly cracked off. So many children are born out of wedlock. So many families are disintegrating into divorce. There's so much child abuse, right? And so the family is not nearly as safe as it used to be for these kids. There's one support left, one that these kids could have gone to, even if their family was struggling, even if for some reason their family doesn't take them to church. There was one other leg left. What was that? It was a stable, nurturing teacher relationship at school. That was the last hope for many children. And many teachers understand that. They go into the teaching profession because they want to love the children. They want to teach and support and mentor the children. But Common Core has interfered with all of that. Now, how does that work? Okay. What happened was Bill Gates and the elites got together and decided they want to impose a coast-to-coast, nationwide, untested, unvalidated, unpiloted program on all of our vulnerable children. So he took his millions and created organizations to push this, to develop this, again with no validated research, none. It was imposed on all of the children, and the interesting thing about these standards is that they all knew that those standards would mean nothing unless they were connected to what? What was it? The data, the assessments, the testing. And they're on record, they're on video saying that. Until it's hooked up, until it's aligned with the testing, nothing's going to change. And boy, were they right. So they insisted on government high-stakes testing. So your children in school now are forced to take these high-stakes tests. In fact, what they're doing, they are working, it used to be a school, now it's a data sweatshop. And those kids are providing data. In fact, one article said that a really good software program, an online software program, can collect millions of pieces of data on a child as they're working on online things. Now that's terrifying. Why is that terrifying? Why is it such a big deal if Facebook knows that my little kid likes puppies and horses? No, that's not the danger. Okay, I'm alerting you to the danger. The danger of data is that when the big tech can create granular profiles of somebody, a data profile, that data is gold. That data is power. How does it work? Well, think about it. The more they know about your past behavior and choices and opinions, the more they know about your future behavior, opinions, attitudes, right? Now that's powerful. Obama used it in his last election when he won. He knew who to target because of their profiles. I have a friend that's a forensic psychologist. He gets paid big bucks for doing what? Making data profiles on potential jurors for a jury pool. And then the attorney can look at those data profiles and predict with much greater accuracy who will vote for his side of the case and against. And he gets paid big bucks just to do that. This is just the beginning. Already the data that big tech has on your children will make it so that doors will close to scholarships, college entrance. Eventually it will impact mortgages, health insurance, any kind of insurance, credit, housing, employment. Because employers will, in fact, there are even therapists now that before they take a client, they will Google the name and find out about that person. Do I really want that person in my practice? Now that's unethical, but it happens. So what you will find is that doors for your children's opportunity will close in their face and you won't even know why. You will not know why they didn't get that scholarship. You will not know why they didn't get in that college. You will not know why they didn't get that job. It is as if the data will be able to put an invisible Star of David on your child, and that will last with them the rest of their life. And I want you to think about that. There's a reason that Common Core was enacted. It had nothing to do with children's achievement. Nothing. How do we know that? About a year ago, Bill Gates had an article when he said, the Common Core, I guess it really didn't do what we hoped to. So sad, too bad. He didn't care. You know why? Because he got the data. And there's videos of him saying, if we can get everything standardized and get the children standardized, we can plug that child into our system and have a nationwide public trough for Bill Gates and the other big tech people. You can see why this would happen. I mean, Microsoft, they make about $30 billion a year, but the United States budget for education, over $600 billion. They look at that and they're like, forget selling software on individual computers, let's go for the school kids. And then, when they get the data from that, what do they do with that? Haven't you ever wondered why people would spend so much time and effort to hack into data? Why? Because it's like gold. It's like power, right? They can sell that on the dark web. They can sell it anywhere. And this is what is going to be happening. Now, interestingly, the EU, they just announced that they are suing, they're fining Google over $1 billion, that's a B, $1 billion for practices that basically monopolized their position in Europe for advertising. Isn't that interesting? EU is out ahead of us on this data. They understand the power that big tech is wielding against our freedom, okay? They get that. In fact, they passed a law called the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, 1 or 2 years ago, and that basically said you have to opt in to data collection in Europe. If the company is more than, I think, $25 million a year, you have to opt in. Is there any wonder now, have you ever kind of wondered why we have those little pop-ups now when you get on a new website and it's cookie and it says, we use cookies, and are you okay with that? That's part of the reason that that's happening, is because of the GDPR. Europe said, no, you have to have people opt in because we understand the power of the data collection that's happening right underneath your nose and you don't even know it. Right now, data is gold. And we have a gold rush in the world right now for data, unlike anything the Wild West ever knew. It's unregulated, it's exploiting children, exploiting all of us. We have no idea the ramifications that will happen. But the more data they have on your child and you, the more political power they will have, the more marketing power they have, the more power they have. And it's a very, very important concept to get. Common Core has never been about having your child achieve more. That was simply a smokescreen. It's about the data. And the way we know is because every time we try to get unhooked from the data, the government screams and big tech screams. So for instance, with the high-stakes assessments, that they allow a 5% parental opt-out rate, only 5%. Now, the state where I come from, Utah, has a 7% opt-out rate. You wouldn't think that'd be any big deal, right? Oh no, this is a very big deal. Betsy DeVos at the Department of Education let the state of Utah know that educational federal funding is at risk if we have more than a 5% opt-out rate. Can you believe that? We even wrote a letter asking for a waiver. Hey, Betsy, it's only 2%. Okay, can you deal? No. They want every child sacrificed on the altar of data, and they're not kidding, and they'll take millions of dollars away in order to get their way. So this tells you this is a big deal. Don't let them tell you, oh no, the high-stakes testing is no big deal. It's huge. Now the problem is that all of that data that child is generating in testings and online assessments and other behavioral assessments, the problem is that child feels that pressure. You could tell them till the cows come home, no, it really doesn't matter. But the whole system is saying, it matters. So that child feels a lot of pressure. And many of these high-stakes tests are computer adaptive, where the child works and works and works and never feels a sense of satisfaction because the questions are adjusted upward, upward, upward to see what their max learning is. And they feel frustrated, and they don't feel like they were successful, and they don't know if they did a good job, and they will never know. They do all that work, but they never get the results of the test that benefit them because the tests are not for them. The tests are exploiting them. That's the whole point. But the teachers, they know that that high-stakes testing can really impact them. It impacts their careers. It impacts their reviews. And so it used to be that when a child walked in the teacher's class that was behind, that needed help, a lot of teachers were very compassionate and said, wow, what can we do to help you? Not so much now. More often, a child walks into that class that's obviously behind, and that teacher goes, whoa, now that child's a threat to my career, to my future, to my security. And that's what Common Core does. Common Core gets in between the teacher and the students. Teachers don't need a huge bureaucracy. Teachers don't need outside assessments to assess what their children are doing. Teachers know their children. Teachers can write their own assessments. The closer to the child that you are, the more you know about them. They're not just a set of data points. They are not just a set of data points. They are people. And Common Core makes children into a set of data points. And it removes the teacher from that relationship with that child. Here's the interesting thing. How does that connect up with suicidality, with the eating disorders, with the cutting, with the drug use, with the promiscuity, with the bullying? How does that connect up? Here it is. If the most vulnerable children don't have solid families, aren't part of a solid church, they're depending on that relationship with the teacher to give them stability. But Common Core interferes with that. Common Core crushes that relationship. It makes it so that teacher cannot look at that child with as much compassion and love. That child simply is a bunch of data points in many instances, and if they're not good data points, that is a risk to the teacher. So, what happens with this kind of system, and I predicted this years ago, I said, you know what? There's going to be 10% of kids, I don't care where you had them, they would be successful. And then in the middle, there's 80%. 80% could go either way, depending on the system, okay? But there's the 10% at the bottom. They're the most vulnerable. They need the most support. And the students that are going to suffer the very most under the Common Core situation are the most vulnerable because they are losing what they need in a regular school relationship with a teacher that loves and cares about them and isn't so beholden to so many stakeholders, so many programs, so many outputs that they can concentrate on really teaching that child. So I hope you understand that with the Common Core, we have been enslaved. Our children have been put in a position where they are under so much more stress than they used to be. And if we can get released and freed from this Common Core, then teachers can start teaching again, states can make their own standards, the teachers can make their own assessments, and children will be able to have that real relationship again with their teacher that they really want, that they really need. And so that is my hope. I'm hoping Alabama is going to lead the way and show us the way, and I hope Utah is going to be right behind. Anyway, I'm glad you had me here. You're a great state, great people, wonderful kids, fantastic teachers. Let's let the teachers teach, okay? All right.